Hey there, I wish to do a response to the YouTuber Cupcake Souls video on Minecraft horror mods. I wish to mention to not dox and harass anyone mentioned in this video, and this is just my personal opinion, and I just wish to point out some of the inconsistencies they've got incorrectly. And just to show that there is definitely more to this mod than what they describe, and I understand that they declare this isn't an in-depth review, but I just wish to point out some minor inconsistencies. And just expect a lot of pausing, and let's get into it.
The cave dweller. He's kind of cute in a weird way, like, he's just a creature, and it isn't his fault that he's like this. There are a lot of videos on this guy and the various mods he's in or has inspired, but here's my take. At first, when I was just entering this cave, it was scary. The sound effects are really well done and worked to create a mood. I knew Mr. Man was down here somewhere, but that fear of the unknown was still getting triggered. But then he just appeared here like a ghost, and I was more confused than scared. It was like seeing a Jehovah's Witness show up in the middle of the day. I was like, what? I thought I somehow missed him. I mean, from my streams we know I'm somewhat blind, but no. He spawned behind me once I turned, and I had no way to react. It's not often mentioned in horror discussion, but you do need a way to escape the situation to make it effective and not repetitive. And it's usually by either running away or hiding, but fighting back is an option sometimes. If I can't do any of those three things successfully, if I'm just supposed to sit and die, then it becomes a chore. It makes me bored and annoyed, not scared.
The creator of this mod, actually, Gargan, she actually accounted for this, and she made an entire algorithm for it, and I don't know if Cupcake Souls watched it, because if we go to here,
all his variations, he reinvented.
Alright, here, you can see that there is no red line, and red lines usually signify how long YouTube video has been watched, and there is none here. So assuming that Cupcake Souls screenshotted this, that means they have not watched the video. But there is a very common bug that that can make it so that there is no red bar there. So just take this part with a grain of salt. This is more of an assumption than anything. But judging how they acted when they saw it, I don't think they actually watched the video, but that's what I think. I'd prefer, if they do find this video, I hope they give an in-depth explanation of what actually happened, and, yeah. Also, by the way, that entire AI, thing with how it acted, that was due to how random it was, because like I said, they have an algorithm. So if this was the thing where you like died once and then didn't touch it afterwards, that means that you can't just like get a proper opinion after like one experiment. So I don't know what you did exactly, so I'd like definitely, if you do see this Cupcake Souls, I'd prefer an explanation of what the full thing of what happened from what you can recall when you play the mod.
But I do understand why the cave dweller brought a new spirit to the scene. It is a simple concept which I appreciate, and I'm sure most people would find it terrifying. I can definitely picture him on a multiplayer world causing absolute terror in the players, but as I've outlined, I think the execution of the monster is quite flawed. The anomaly—
Well, that just contradicts my argument that they only played this once, but it's still like, that'd still be considered 2 times, which Cupcake Souls, if you do end up watching this, I'd prefer an in-depth explanation of what happened when you played this mod. Thank you.
It was somewhat interesting at first, and maybe because of my old creepypasta roots, I do like the idea of having a game wherein something is just wrong. This just wasn't scary though. It was cool to see Herobrine slowly devolve into this messed up creature, but there wasn't any added sound effect.
Alright, now we will be going to focus on her Cupcake Souls video on From the Fog.
Move on to another extremely suggested mod called From the Fog. This mod implements Herobrine in a more subtle way than the mod pack I played in part 1. It tries to be more accurate to the legend and just generally subtle in its approach. Trying is very different to succeeding though. Nothing happens in the first 3 days, which is okay, but as I knew I was delving into a horror experience, I would have liked a few strange things, even if that just means a few unexpected cave noises. Because the first thing I saw that happened after the 3 days was this. I'm glad there was no loud noise, but I'd still consider this an unearned jump scare. Because there was absolutely no build-up. Nothing happening at all does not count.
That is just blatantly false, because there is definitely build-up. I played this mod for about 5 times, and a slash data pack, and every time I played there's been random structures appearing, like pyramids and redstone torches. They are the most common sign that is there. And also, not to mention, if you load up your world, you get a message saying unknown entity error. And it's, so I'd say that this is just blatantly false.
Count as atmospheric development. And I'm sorry.
Before we go further, I'd wish to mention that the creator of this mod, Brett09, forgive me if I'm saying that incorrectly, did state that this is not intended to be a horror mod. This is actually intended to be more of a vanilla plus type mod pack. And the reason why it's not scary is because it just wants to add on to your world.
But Herobrine randomly appearing behind you is not accurate to the legend. The most fun thing about Herobrine is that I swear I just saw him moments, not the, oh, I just saw him moments. Because as I said last video, actually adding him tends to ruin him. Therefore, those who want to develop Herobrine mods have everything going up against them. I did like seeing him stalking from a distance, that is true to the legend, but then he bounds away all jolly and it leads to some—
I wish to have a question. Were you actively searching for Herobrine? Because the main horror factor is mostly forgetting that he's in your world. Take the librarian series on the data pack, for instance. Most of the time, he isn't discussing about Herobrine, but he does have it on. He's usually up to something else or talking about something else. So when the Herobrine encounters do happen, actually is incredibly scary. It can be scary because it's just to the point that sometimes you just forget that he has that data pack on. So when it does happen, it is definitely a surprise moment.
Funny looking animations like this one where he's jumping into a wall and then just disappears by, I guess. Him appearing at the foot of my bed is a little bit concerning. I guess it just depends who you ask for their opinion on that, but I wouldn't consider it scary. If you're going to develop a Herobrine mod, you need to keep in mind what I have said. The idea of seeing him is scarier than actually seeing him. Just as a personal anecdote, to this day, I have a childhood memory of seeing a figure walk behind a tree and disappear. I was convinced it was Herobrine, and I was terrified in that instant. To this day, that feeling lingers with me. I have such a vivid image of this event, but logically, I know it couldn't have happened. But horror doesn't abide by logic. Being disturbed is typically not a logical emotion. When I'm staring at that dark corner of my room, my fear is not dictated by logic. I know nothing will emerge from that corner, no hand, no person, no face, but I'm scared anyway. I'm going to allow my first guest on the channel, Alan Wake, to explain this concept for a moment.
Stephen King once wrote that—
I wish to mention that some of this stuff would be incredibly hard to pull off, because I don't know if you know this, because I think you're using the mod, is that the data pack in mod, the mod is literally just a port of the data pack, and they have this rule that's been stated several times in the Discord server where the data pack and mod will stay 1-to-1, so they are under some very huge limitations.
nightmares exist outside of logic, and there's little fun to be had in explanations. They're antithetical to the poetry of fear.
Herobrine does not logically exist. You don't need to make him logically exist. And if you want to make a mod based on him, it needs to be absurdly subtle. From the Fog added player noises nearby, and I loved that. It was my favourite part of the mod, and it did get to me. But if you want to make Herobrine really work, you need to have distant figures disappearing behind trees, just an instant that makes the players doubt themselves. You need to see white eyes in the darkness of a cave. You need those player noises nearby.
Those are coming in the update that's coming out soon. It's currently 75% done, but I understand that you don't know this because it is very close information, and most of the info is on the Discord server for the mod.
Someone mining, getting closer and closer until it stops, for seemingly no reason. I personally think Herobrine works best as a more alternate reality game horror experience, like the Broken Script, because ARG horror doesn't need to abide by the rules of the game it's placed within. The creature design doesn't need to suit the environment, because it's inherently unsuited, inherently out of place. You can take a Herobrine mod further than the subtlety I mentioned, but it has to be taken out of the bounds of Minecraft itself. Paranoia in horror is linked to dread, but the two differ somewhat. Here's some definitions on screen to add some pretentious value to the
Once again, Brett09 has stated in a blog post that this is not a horror mod, and I will link that post in the description.
video, but I'll explain what I mean in my own words as well. Dread can come from many things and is key to good atmosphere. You're terrified to take another step. You're constantly on edge, expecting something terrible to happen in-game. That build-up of dread allows for fair jump scares to take place, but it's all within the realm of the game. You're in the mindset of your character, invested in the virtual experience. This alone can be scary and disturbing. Again, look at my beloved Mr. X, but adding paranoia can completely change the experience. Because paranoia goes further. Paranoia steps out of the game, of the video, and takes hold of your actual body. Something in that cave is watching you. Something is behind you. Not just in the game, but in real life. You feel as though that presence has somehow made itself corporeal and stands now, silently, waiting for you to turn around. ARG horror works closely with paranoia, not just dread, because it has a link to our reality. Whatever is in this game or video or art piece wants to get out and wants to use you to do so. As I mentioned, the broken script is largely ARG based, and I think Herobrine should be too if people insist on making him an actual thing. And if you go this route, I think you could effectively ramp up his behaviour and make him into a real threat. He's not just spooky Minecraft Steve anymore, he is an entity that haunts the game, spreads through your worlds like a virus looking for a way out. Leaves signs addressed to you, the player, not the character you're playing as.
That happens, by the way.
Crashes your games with unsettling final frames.
That also happens. But that is more of a configurable thing. I don't know if Cupcake Souls knows this, but if you have cheats on, you can configure the mod to your liking. And there's even a setting called Give Him Control, which allows quote-unquote Herobrine to adjust the settings on what time he commonly appears, what can he do or not. And it's actually pretty neat.
Runs at you from behind until you turn and see nothing. Takes control of your character even, renders you helpless in this game you thought you had control over.
Okay, there's also a role in the Discord server where they say that Herobrine is not allowed to directly mess with the player at all, meaning that this would break one of their rules. And it just makes sense because horror mods that kill you are annoying, like you got into this before.
Don't overplay his image. Don't make him constantly appear behind me. Make me feel like he's behind me in real life, right now, willing,
once again, not a horror mod,
and desperate to swap places.
Well, that is it. Once again, please do not go after Cupcake Souls. Do not dox or harass them. But thank you for hearing me out. And this is all my opinion, by the way. Which means that, you know, just make sure to check out their channel too, because they do definitely make great videos. And have a good day.